Ladies, gents, and NBs, you've just entered the Last Save Lounge. Pull up a chair. You're in good company. The Last Save Lounge is a weekly interview show where we dig into the stories, memories, and moments behind our favorite games. I'm your host, Aaron TurboHoodie Amendola, and I am happy you're here. This week, I am joined by Charlie Hall, writer and editor whose work you may have seen on Polygon, Ars Technica, and Gamers with Jobs. Charlie, how you doing?
Doing pretty great, Aaron. It's good to be with you here today.
Yeah, this is officially the Silksong counter programming. Everyone is trying to buy it, and we are just in here being idiots talking about games.
Yeah, no, not this guy. I could do with less side-scrollers generally. Not a fan, and hope you all enjoy your day. Not for me.
It's kind of how I felt about Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi coming out so close to each other. I play like one of those a year, and now I have two amazing games back to back, and I was like, please, I can only take so much pizza, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Charlie, are you playing anything fun right now? Is there anything that's in your collection right now that's catching your eye?
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of the end of the story that you invited me to tell today. But it's a game it's near and dear to my heart, and a lot of the work that I did at Polygon that I'm very proud of. And it's a game called Elite Dangerous. And yeah, the scale and the level to which I am enjoying that game right now is really hard to explain. I love it. Absolutely adore it.
You've been on that beat for like a decade now.
Well, the game itself is over a decade old. It came out in 2014 off a $250 invite-only private beta following a successful Kickstarter. It was my first E3, Aaron, and it was my last appointment on my last day of E3. And my assignment was to go up to the top level of the South Hall of the LA Convention Center and to meet with this guy named David Braben. And I had absolutely no idea what I was wandering into. And quite frankly, it changed a little piece of my professional life, that meeting. It was wonderful.
That's cool. Good. It's amazing when a game impacts you so quickly. Like, you know, this is the flavor I want. And you've seen mutinies, you've seen wars in this game. I know you're writing at Polygon. I felt like I was reading something from a wartime correspondent in deep space.
Well, yeah, I spent an entire weekend inside a Discord chat with 3,000 in-game commanders spread across 3 highly organized attack wings that were defending another player who is also a science fiction novelist traveling through the game world. And so I was quite literally a war correspondent listening to radio chatter and covering, like I would have to enter a system and shout on all channels, press, do not fire. I am here as an unarmed observer. You can scan my ship. Like, it was fun.
It is so wild to think about that, because games have this wild ability to mirror real life situations. Did you ever think in your journalism career that you would be like on the edge of Alpha Centauri, like trying to protect yourself from laser fire?
No, let alone doing it several times. I also had a similar beat in EVE Online when I was doing war reporting for EVE Online at multiple different theaters and multiple different fronts at multiple different times. But it kind of goes to where I started. One of my first big pieces was for Ars Technica, and it was about DayZ. And I remember being in that game with 2 computers, one I'm playing on, the other I am transcribing on, because I'm interviewing someone who won't give me their name inside the game, and they're role-playing as a combat medic. So here I am. He's got NVGs on. We're hearing zombies all around us, and that's where I'm conducting my interview in DayZ. Like, that's how I did my gig.
That's wild. So I know we've kind of gone over your bona fides, but I need to ask, you know, you've been featured on NPR, the BBC, the Smithsonian Magazine. How does it feel to peak being on this podcast?
You know, I'm going out on top, Aaron. I just, I love, if I've done anything in my career, you look at my CV, it's kill a podcast. I've killed 4 of them. Only brought 2 of them into this world, but I have put 4 out. Maybe we can make it 5 today.
Well, can I be totally honest with you? You know, yeah. I was thinking about this show. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I was thinking about shows that I wanted to emulate a bit. And one of the ones that popped into my brain was Backstory.
Stop.
With Charlie Hall.
My favorite child.
I remember, I think you were 3 or 4 episodes in, and
Yeah.
I think this is around the time I met you. And my wife Liz, who was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go see Charlie. He works at Polygon." And I was like, "Not Charlie Hall of Backstory. Surely you don't mean Charlie Hall of Backstory." I always admired the way you found a very human element to this very binary thing that we interact with all the time. There's ones and twos going on behind all this different types of code, but you were always very, very good at pulling that human element out of the story. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a trailblazer.
Thank you, Aaron. No, it's great pride to hear that from you. Thank you.
Okay, so getting into the episode at hand, Last Save Lounge is all about people's favorite games. Now, you have told me about the two that you were wrestling behind, and I did some research. I'll let you reveal the game that you're into, but I know that you grew up in the western suburbs of Chicago. You've talked at length about listening to AM radio growing up, and to me, that is this Norman Rockwell painting of a young child near the radio waiting for their favorite show to come on, and looking at the games that came out around that time. You have Super Metroid, you have Tekken, you have Donkey Kong Country. What is this game that you've selected as your favorite to complete the Norman Rockwell photo?
The game that really, this week I've decided has put really a big spin on me and how I approach the work that I do. It's a game called Beast Bomber, and it was published in 1982 when I myself was 2 years old. And it was published for the Intellivision video game console, Mattel's first and probably most successful foray into electronic gaming and a direct competitor to the OG Atari.
So yeah, that does fit with the Norman Rockwell. I'm picturing those top-down arcade games where you're just a nondescript ship and you're looking at attack sites.
Well,
what is it about this game that really called to you?
You would think that that's what it is, right? It looks like a shmup. You're expecting to be dropping bombs from your little P-51 plane and taking down formations of fighters. That's not at all what it is, Aaron. This was a circa 1982 open world combat flight simulator, where you took on the role of the entire crew, the entire 10-man crew of the venerable Flying Fortress bomber. You were the pilot, the co-pilot, the navigator, the bombardier, and every single gunner on that ship. The big claim to fame for this was that it worked with the voice module for the Intellivision.
Okay, I'm so happy you brought this up, because whenever I search for this game, it says comes with synthesized voice module. And I know how voice to text works for me now. What was that like back in 82?
I have absolutely no idea, because I never played with the voice module. But also, my own journey to this game is kind of bizarre, right? Remember 85, 86, that's when the first video game crash happened, right? My parents were they were the kind of folks that went to the Ace Hardware, bought an empty trash can, but filled it with 16 really expensive drill bits and walked out the door for $5. They did that, but with Intellivision games at Toys R Us. So here is young Charlie, and it was a seasonal thing. We would pull out the Intellivision for the holidays, and we'd plug it into the TV. So 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I'm looking through these old discount stickered Toys R Us, big Jeffrey the Giraffe on them, going, B-17, what's this thing do? And so I put it in there. And it didn't make any sense, right? Okay, here's a map that looks a little bit like the British English Channel. Here's a little bit of England. Here's a lot of France. Here's all these icons. Pick one, and then you fly towards it, maybe? You're going to want to pick this thing up on YouTube real quick. We'll put a link in the show notes. Give it 2 minutes, but there's a constant drone of the engine. You can change the speed of the aircraft. You can change the altitude and the pitch of it. You can roll it left and right. But there's no traditional HUD. It's just really either a blue or a green horizon line. That's it. Drama ensues, though, because you get these calls out because there's attacks. There's fighters coming from your 6 o'clock, from your 9 o'clock, from your 3 o'clock. And you have to switch to each of these gun positions and move your crosshair and shoot down this not terrible outline of a BF-109, right? And you have to defend the ship. And if you get 3 bullets across your screen, that gun station is just down for the rest of the mission. And you have to make it all the way to your target. You've got to bomb that target, destroy that target, remove it from the map that you can see from your navigator seat. Then you've got to turn the ship around and you've got to nurse your injured plane home. This is 1982 and I'm white knuckling it, right? In my living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with my brother manning the waist guns. One of them's been taken out. The tail gunner's shot to hell.
So this
and
is
I just barely landed it on the English Channel. And we're cheering up and down. Like we have survived. But then, next mission. And you got to go through your 24, 25 missions to finish the game. This game opened up a world of history for me that I did not really expect to be so interested in. To really conceive and understand what I was even doing in this game, I had to go to the library. I had to go to my teachers. I had to watch documentaries. I had to find stuff out there in the world that informed me what the hell a B-17 bomber even was. And when I did that, Aaron, I was absolutely hooked on simulation.
Mm-hmm.
I became a true fan of simulation at the age of 7, 8, 9 years old. And I continued to go out there and try and look for more examples of these games. And there's a couple of them here that I want to share with you, but I don't want to start talking.
But what you were telling me, what I know of you, you know that meme of the small domino of played B-17 bomber back in 82.
Yep.
And the other domino, it's the fall of man. This is essentially your origin story, because what I know about in the games you play, there's a direct through line from B-17 to Elite Dangerous. I can see it clear as day. I mean, you have minis, you are painting minis behind you, and you have all this experience with these simulation games. Of course this is how you turned out.
But there's only so many reps you can get on B-17, right? It
Sure.
only covers this one portion of that theater of war. But then I came across this game called Heroes of the 350, where you got to play as a member of the 357th Fighter Group, going into low-level attack runs and bomber escort missions on the Western Front in Europe. And so now we've got 5-inch rocket pods, we've got 250-pound bombs, we've got extra ammunition, extra fuel drop pods. We're working on shooting in defilade. We're all of this stuff. That's where I learned to fly an airplane, was over the Seine, dropping bombs on, I don't know, Hitler's RAFs or whatever shit was there in occupied France, right? But from there, I went to something that was even more remarkable, and I've got a copy of the manual here in my office. It's called Battlehawks 1942, and this was made by Lucasfilm Games.
Based on the movie, right?
No, this was based on technical consultant Lieutenant Commander Richard H. Best. This man destroyed Japanese carriers at Midway. He is a no bullshit American war hero, and he didn't write a manual. He wrote a textbook. This document teaches you how to perform carrier landings. It teaches you the tactics and strategy of torpedo bombing, of dive bombing, of combat air patrols. It just, there's 50 pages at the beginning of this thing with, they've got the DRM, right? Show me the picture of the plane that matches page 52 so you can get to level 17. That's how old this kind of game is. But
oh my God,
that is the kind of work that went into this very good, very open, very sim-y flight simulator that just absolutely ensorcelled me in the early 90s. And I don't know, I was the kid that did a unit in science class on SimCity, but then modded SimCity and then opened up Microsoft Flight Simulator and flew over his modded copy of SimCity, pointing out the business district to my teacher. That's what this did to me, Aaron. And I would not be there without that first taste of the Intellivision one weird Christmas when I was 7.
So what I'm seeing is there are some dads that get into Band of Brothers and it's all World War II. You are in this multiversal area of playing B-17, and that's what got you into all these real life things. And hearing you talk about this, you're using acronyms and definitions that I'm just that sounds like a lot. That sounds like if that happened to me, I would be dead. I'm curious, did you have any sort of fascination with war or like ships before this game came through? And was this like an avenue to really extrapolate that?
I grew up in a household. My dad was a U.S. Air Force veteran. The
Okay.
remove before flight tag that's sitting here in my office is off an F-4 Phantom that was parked near Ipswich, England, that definitely did not have nuclear weapons under each wing, ready to fly at Russia. That never happened, but that is in my office. But we didn't really go to like air shows. We weren't always watching like, Hogan's Heroes and shit on TV. I had a pretty benign, innocent kind of upbringing, right? But I think that when my Air Force veteran dad saw me pick up these hardcore air flight sims, he was probably like, we're not going to let him say the word death when he plays Hero Quest with his brother, but he can go shoot the Japanese in a historically accurate simulation of naval engagements with the fascist empire. All he wants, every day, all day.
That was, my parents didn't want me to play war games, but I could definitely play Power Rangers that shot guns at crowded city areas.
Yeah.
And like Ninja Turtles, where it was like, yeah, we're going to do violence and eat pizza. It's hilarious what parents will let them do if there's like, I'm a little interested in that. At least I can talk to that a bit.
Yep.
I want to talk to you more about B-17, but before we get to that, I just want to remind our listeners that the Last Save Lounge is supported by Patreon at patreon.com/hoodieweather. By supporting Hoodie Weather, patrons get a bonus segment each week, a bundle of Hoodie Weather tabletop games, and ad-free episodes in your feeds. If times are tough, we think you are too. And you can still support the Last Save Lounge by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app of choice. Tell your friends or tell your rivals. We're not picky. Charlie, one thing that I wanted to ask you about that I think we kind of glossed over is this voice synthesis module.
Absolutely.
So what the hell? What is that thing?
Yeah, I mean, the Intellivision was an interesting device, like soup to nuts. It was wood grain, of course, because all great video game consoles have to have a wood grain. And the controllers would kind of nest inside of the console. They were rectangular, and they were on these curly Q, like telephone, rotary telephone cord cable.
I remember seeing it when I was born, and even I was like, that's old, as someone that had an NES,
But then you would take these controllers out, and here's imagine like a envelope, like a small envelope, but it's 3/4 of an inch thick. And then there's buttons on the side, 4 of them. And then there's a 10-key keypad on top. And they're like these thin mylar domed key buttons. And you put an overlay for each game. Each game came with a plastic overlay, and you would insert this into the controller. And now it's a bespoke controller for this game with 10, 14, like 16 buttons and a D-pad. It was a lot of buttons. You could do a lot with it, right? And so on the side of the console, that's where the cartridge went in. You weren't putting it on the top like every other console. You slid it in the side. But between this giant wood grain console and the cartridge, that's where the voice synthesizer module went. And I think that this B-17 game was one of the very few. There might have only been like 1 or 2 other games that made use of the synthesizer at all. And you can still pick them up on eBay. And if your console works, like it will blurt words at you. Again, there's videos on YouTube with the show notes, but it's real gripping stuff. It's like digital voice goes, and that's at 12 o'clock. And that's it.
But as a kid back then, you were like, holy cow, it sounds like the real thing.
Well, no, again, we didn't have it, right? So this was after it was off the market, and there was no secondary market for it, right? So all of this stuff was picked up on a fire sale at Toys R Us. And my folks didn't think that voice module was useful. They wanted the games, which, hey, thanks, folks. But no, didn't have one until, I don't think I've ever had one. I've only seen it on YouTube myself.
Well, I'm now probably just going to buy one to see it. Unless like it's either going to be $2 on eBay or $2,000.
Right.
Like there's no in between.
I'm afraid it's going to be closer to the $2,000. Yeah, I got that news for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I retract everything that I said. So when I think about games like B-17 Bomber, like you said, it looks like a shmup, but it's absolutely not. in my heyday, we had stuff like Desert Storm, we had UN Squadron. Did you ever get into like the Mech Warrior games with the 200 buttons? Because that feels like it's in your alley right now.
Yeah. No, there was a full HOTAS set that we had somehow found, again, probably the Babbages when they were going out of business.
Oh my God, a Babbage's next to a software etc.
It was either that or software etc. Good Lord. What was the other one? There was an egg pun. It'll come to me later. But all of those. So, but Sierra made a knockoff Mech Warrior. I don't know if you know about this. Nobody does. And so I was able to hook up that kind of cut rate HOTAS set. It was one of those HOTASes with none of it comes apart. So you had like pedals that were permanently daisy chained to the throttle, that were permanently daisy chained to the stick. It was ridiculous. One serial cable, right? Like not even a USB. Like,
I think I had the small one for the original Xbox, and I was like 15. My parents were like, "Are you in a gang? Like, what's going on here?"
But yeah, you could use your feet to turn the torso on this big stompy robot, and it was just the best thing. The game was very thin, as I recall, and didn't really hold my interest. And then Guild Wars came out, so I got rid of the retro vibe there and went back to modern games.
As somebody that's been a console gamer for a while, hearing you talk about some of the PC experiences and playing on a modded sort of game, I'm going to be 40 in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I feel myself getting closer to the PC gamer life, you know?
Yes.
And I'm really scared that it's just going to swallow me whole. But when I hear that I can play some of these older games, B-17 is on Steam. We almost spent this episode talking about the original XCOM.
Oh.
I've had UFO Defense on my Steam Deck forever. Are there any modern games that come to mind that remind you of B-17 that feel like a more modern version of that game that affected you so long ago?
I mean, honestly, the closest corollary that I'm able to find right now is with Elite Dangerous. And as I have grown older, I'm finding that less and less what I want out of these experiences is the combat.
Mm-hmm.
Less and less what I want out of these experiences is the opportunity to, in great detail, plan my strategic bombing campaign of anyone. It just, I don't know, Aaron, it kind of hits different right now.
Absolutely it does.
But what I really enjoyed and what I was able to find in B-17 was that freedom to explore. And that is absolutely what brings me the most joy right now in Elite Dangerous. In Elite Dangerous, it's a one-to-one recreation of all 400 billion stars in the Milky Way star system. The community as a whole has explored to date 0.063% of all of the planets and star systems that were created with this giant software rock tumbler that they call the Celestial Forge. And the thing that I'm doing right now is they opened up colonization for the first time. Since 2014, when this game first came out, people, I'm using air quotes here, were really only allowed to live in this bubble around our star system, our star Sol. And they've broken out of the bubble with this latest expansion. I believe it's a free expansion that everyone that owns the game is free to experience. And so there's these long tendrils that streak out of the bubble now. And so I'm part of a group called the Oasis Expedition. I'm in a Discord channel with about 12 other like-minded commanders. And we've broken off from the main expedition, and we are journeying out past the Orion Nebula to the spear in the constellation Orion, and I'm going to be helping lift goods and perform security operations in Orion's spear. And I couldn't be more excited. I couldn't be more excited. Really cool. In my basement, I've really gone all in, and this is where I want to sell you on the PC gaming lifestyle, Aaron, okay? When I donated my car to NPR, I kept the passenger seat, and I built a cockpit around it. And so I have in my basement right now the right hand from a 2002 Ford Taurus. I've got a Warthog stick. I've got a Virpil throttle. I've got Virpil pedals. I've got a keyboard on a monitor arm. I've got 2 monitors. I've got full 18 inches of travel in the seat, mind you, so you can get in and out of the seat. I've got Track IR. I've got VR if I want it. Like, When I go down to my basement, I am in my starship and I am with my folks in Discord and I am running the routes that I'm running and I'm completely content and completely peaceful and completely happy just with the joy of maneuver, going places and landing these things and moving this shit around and being part of this wild project. Early next year, there's going to be a whole other expedition. So we're actually building infrastructure that is going to support maybe another. It's called Distant Worlds. Distant Worlds 2 is something that I covered at Polygon. But Distant Worlds 3, I'm hoping we get it up over 12, 13, 14,000 in-game participants again on this 4-month journey across the Milky Way. It's just an incredible community, incredible platform, and it just gives you that kind of freedom and also danger that I've always been looking for in my gaming experiences.
I love that you look for a little bit of danger, because with me, I'm like, let me be as safe as possible. This is the safest space for me to experience horror and Resident Evil or owning a house like in The Sims, because that's horrifying. One thing that I'm picking up, though, is you said that you're playing B-17 with your brother and you're shouting commands at each other. But again, you can see that track. You're in this huge community now. To me, it sounds like Star Trek. Like, I would love a game that is just a bunch of science officers going out into the expanse and seeing what's out there and having that sort of that like platoon troop brotherly love thing going on.
Yeah.
You know, where you're all focused on one exact thing. Has there been any one moment from Elite Dangerous, like a moment that you've experienced personally that stood out to you?
Absolutely. I was on the Distant Worlds expedition a couple of years ago. I think it took off in 2018, 2017. I'll have to check. But it's a 65,000 light year. It was a 4-month journey out. Most people blew themselves up to get back. I was not one of them. So it's 4 months back.
I'm going to circle back to that when you're done with this.
But there were 2 support wings that traveled along with the fleet, and the fleet got over 13,000 players. One of them was the fuel rats, and if you run out of fuel in Elite Dangerous, somebody got to come bring it to you. Like, there's no other option. If you can't get it from the star that you're orbiting and you can't get to the next star, well, you just got to wait. And so the fuel rats will come and bring you fuel. So I've flown with the fuel rats, and I've written and reported on them before. The new group, though, was called the Hull Seals, and their little logo is adorable. It's a little seal with a little ball on its nose, but they would come out and they would repair your ship, because we were 65,000 light years from anything. Unless you brought an advanced field maintenance unit with you and it was full of fuel and your ship was capable of using it, you needed somebody to fix your fenders every once in a while. And so the fuel seals would come out and do it. There is a pirate radio station called Distant Radio that is run by the community. So here I'm listening to Distant Radio when a call comes in for the fuel rats. Urgent. This commander only has so much oxygen left. I'm in my cockpit, right? I go to the Discord. How do I help coordinate this response? Like, how are we going to save this guy out here in the unfashionable Western spiral arm of the galaxy, right? And so what I was able to do was cover it as a newsman. I was able to go to the Twitch channel. I was able to monitor the response. I was able to watch the community harvesting materials that they needed to synthesize oxygen, to pump into their ship, to keep them alive long enough that they could fix the thing that was broken. And that was reporting that I was able to do inside the game from the cockpit, from the bridge of the Evelyn Christine, the ship that I had brought along with me on this journey. And that was my part in it. And it was awesome. Without me being there, though, without me actually doing that work, without me witnessing it, without me turning it into a story, that's the kind of stuff that just goes away. The same way that the story of me and my brother sitting on the couch playing B-17 just kind of goes away if nobody's there to tell it. So I don't know. This is my role. This is what I enjoy doing. I like bringing attention to those stories of things that happen in games and making sure that people see them and love them if they can.
I'm confident that even if you hadn't documented that, there would be people who would have remembered that moment of you being in that Discord. You know, for as many Destiny raids that I've been on, I love being the person that tries to find a fire team on the last boss and needs one person. And if it's one thing I know how to do really well, I love going in there, getting them a raid clear, and then just being like, pay it forward, goodbye.
Yes.
You know, and that's really what it's all about. I've admired Elite Dangerous from a distance. EVE Online as well. It just sounds like it's such a massive thing to get into. But it is that way because the people that make up that player base. That's really cool. Charlie, can I ask you one question about XCOM before
Sure.
we do tie this up? So you said you were thinking about B-17 or XCOM UFO Defense. And I know a little bit about XCOM, but I went to the internet and was looking at what people thought of this original 1994 XCOM game. A lot of people know, Chimera Squad or some of the new ones, which are all amazing, but they started with XCOM. Rock Paper Shotgun back in 2015 wrote an article, The 50 Best Strategy Games Ever Made. XCOM was number 6. How do you feel about that?
I think that is a good and accurate assessment of its worth on the global stage. Like, it's tried to do something that I think is really remarkable, and that is the turn-based, almost board game-like aspect of squad combat. But then it tried to do something else that I think was incredibly worthy and incredibly game-changing, and that's the whole science tree that you're able to unlock. The research that you're able to do fundamentally changes the tactics that you must employ on that turn-based game. And I used to play through the original XCOM on an annual basis, and that was only supplanted by Firaxis's XCOM 2, which I now play annually. But just, again, it was very open. It allowed you to be creative. It allowed you to do things specifically with the blaster bomb and flying armor that broke the game, that confused the aliens, that made it very simple towards the end. And that was the intent of the design. And it was very bold. It was very well done.
And talk about a team that really carried that vision forward. That 2012 XCOM hit me like a ton of bricks. I never finished it. I went all my chips in on XCOM 2, and I made every one of my characters somebody I knew because I really wanted to care for my squad members. I made my wife a sniper because she could stay in the back. then I do have a selfish question for you. As somebody that's never beaten XCOM 2, I always get to that first snake creature that I think is part of the DLC, and I just get throttled. Is it me or is the game unfair?
No, it's you. You've got to prioritize your melee guys, your shotguns and your melee guys. Once the snake people show up, they have got to be the core of your fighting force. You have to switch how you fight the battles. You can't stay in the backfield. You've got to bring it to them. And it gets even worse with the insectoids. The insectoids that will burrow into your chest, take over the guy that you named after your wife. In the first XCOM, that was like a very big learning cliff. Like, it was very possible to get to a point with the first Firaxis XCOM that you could not beat that mission. But with XCOM 2, they evened it out. They gave you all the tools you need. You just gotta.
I got to sacrifice my wife, is what you're saying?
But you in that game, though, you have the ability to fail a mission, to retool, to retrain, to come back, and to fight through it. Not so much in the first one. If she's got to die, she's got to die. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, this is what I've been telling her, and she's just very upset about it. Charlie, it's been really lovely just getting to talk to you about these experiences you've had with your brother playing B-17, and then bringing us along this intergalactic travel to Elite Dangerous. Where can we find you these days if listeners want to catch up with your work?
Yeah, no, I'm on Blue Sky the most right now. And what even is my Blue Sky handle these days? Charlie Hall, bluesky.social, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And I don't know, I'm kind of in a holding pattern right now. We're going to see which of the shoes drop on what particular surface, and I don't know, hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have a little more certainty in my life.
Yeah, a little more certainty would be really welcome for everyone. And listeners, I'm going to tell you that you can have a little bit more certainty in your life if you support Last Save Lounge on Patreon. Thank you so much for listening to this first episode of Last Save Lounge. I think we nailed it. I think we absolutely crushed it, and I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. Like I said, Last Save Lounge is produced by Hoodie Weather, creating comfy games and podcasts broken in like your favorite hoodie. You can support Hoodie Weather by heading to patreon.com/hoodieweather and becoming a Patreon for just $1, or be a free member and, do a lot of fun stuff with us anyway. You can join us on the Discord. All those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, ladies, gents, and NBs, and we will see you next time on The Last Save Lounge. Anything to end with, Charlie?
I mean, keep them flying. Like, if you have ever wanted to get into something like an Elite Dangerous, like, now is the time to do it. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening in there, a lot of good communities on Discord that you can jump into. Go out, play a simulation of some kind. Boot up Microsoft Flight Simulator on Game Pass. Just enjoy.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much, Charlie. We'll see you later.
Thank you, Aaron.